Senator Brooks joining us with about three, maybe I think three pieces of legislation today. Senator Brooks has represented Maryland's District 10 since 2023 and serves on the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee, one that many of us advocates are familiar with. A U.S. Army veteran and a Vietnam Service Medal recipient, Senator Brooks championed permanent community solar programs for low-income residents and advanced native plant legislation. He remains focused on education, energy, and building stronger communities. While we wait for Senator Brooks to see if we can actually get him here today, I'm going to jump around on his bills a little bit while we have the advocates here to help move those. And so we're first going to start with, since I see Drew Schmidt-Perkins joining us, we're going to start with the septic bill, if you don't mind, Drew. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Love talking about septics, the silent polluter of the Chesapeake Bay and our waterways. We're thrilled that Senator Brooks has joined Delegate Guyton to sponsor a bill that would simply require that inspections are done of septic systems whenever they're being sold or between renters. Septic systems are responsible for in 17 counties for the majority of nitrogen pollution. And yes, I'm joined by my granddaughter behind me. And I mean, it's outweighing sewage treatment plants now. It's a lot of pollution. It's sort of the hidden polluter of the Chesapeake Bay. So this bill would just say, hey, you got to get these systems inspected, and if there's a problem, you have to get them fixed. We just got the bill numbers, and of course, I don't have them in front of me. Their bills were pre-filed, and it almost made it through last year, almost 10 minutes before the end of session. A question was asked, and they pulled it down. So this year, we're very hopeful that we'll actually get through so that we can begin to find the secret septic problems and get them fixed.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Drew. I heard it once said that the septic system is your most important, what am I trying to say? Your most important system in your house that you never see, that you never really know what's going on with. And so
Most
I like this
expensive
bill.
appliance. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And what I like about this bill is when you put it on the sales of properties or you hinge it on that, that's when you have motivated people to fix it, right? When you really want to see when a owner wants to see their property change over or the buyer wants to see it, you're going to see some motivation to actually make this or to get these septics fixed upon that sale. So I think it's a really sensible piece of legislation, and I hope this year means we can get it across the finish line. So thank you.
Always hopeful.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks for all
So
your work
join
on.
Team Septics. We have a lot of fun working on septic issues because you can only do it if you're having fun.
Yeah, and just actually for a plug for Team Septic, anybody on the program today who has any questions or is interested in more of the work that Team Septic is doing, please go ahead and reach out to Drew Schmidt-Perkins. Drew, if you wouldn't mind throwing your email in the chat, that would really
Happy
help
to.
out a lot. Yeah, great. We're going to jump back here, Bill, and one that I think many of us are familiar with that we're going to ask Martha Ainsworth if she wouldn't mind talking about is the Maryland bottle bill that Senator Brooks is sponsoring and bringing back this year. I'll turn it over to Martha to talk about this, please.
Well, thanks very much for inviting us to do this, and thrilled to be here today. The Maryland bottle bill, the objective is to reduce litter and plastic pollution. And keep in mind that we've known for many, many years that plastic affects the wildlife, right? We know plastic affects wildlife, but over the last year, we've learned some very alarming things about plastic in our bodies, including in our brains. It's accumulating. And Maryland has been trying to get a bottle bill since the 1970s. You can believe that. And we are the closest we've ever been to getting this thing passed. And I think it's being propelled by our concern about plastic pollution and what it's going to do to human beings. So let me just say that more than 5.5 billion beverage containers are sold in Maryland annually, and only about a quarter of them are being captured for recycling. So the rest are going into the environment, incinerators, landfills, and litter. It's a wasted, besides what I just said about human health and the environment, it's also wasted energy and resources because we're actually burying or burning a lot of resources that could have been reused. And it saves a lot of greenhouse gas emissions if you reuse the materials as opposed to using virgin materials. Okay, next slide. All right. So it's really quite simple. A small refundable deposits added to the price of beverages in glass, plastic, and metal beverage containers. Let me just say that this is one of the most it will be the most comprehensive bottle bill in the United States. There are already 10 states that have these bills, but they're more limited in scope. Deposits refunded when their containers are returned to a convenient retailer. Think about it as buying the beverage and borrowing the container. And we get the containers back because there's a refundable deposit. Many of you may remember when you were kids, at least if you're my generation, collecting the glass bottles off the side of out the litter and getting money for them. Anyway, that's the general idea. Back then we had reusable glass beverage containers that we refilled. Now we have single-use plastic, aluminum, and glass beverage containers. And so we want eventually to get back to that. But this bill is about making sure they get collected and they're not littered. So 60 states, countries, and territories have these active deposit systems. The ones most recently in Europe were motivated by their single-use plastic directive. They need to get at least 90% of plastic PET bottles returned by 2029. And so a lot of them are adopting laws like this. So we have a lot of experience now about what's happening in Europe and the effectiveness of these programs in in reducing plastic litter. So, okay, next slide, please. So this bill, when passed, will recover 3.6 billion more containers a year, 2.3 billion of which are plastic. We're going to have a reduction in litter, plastic, and microplastic pollution. And keep in mind, this is not the only thing we have to do to get rid of microplastic pollution, but it is the lowest hanging fruit. We'll get high quality food grade materials. The beverage containers will not be commingled with stuff in the curbside bin, detergents, and other stuff. It will be suitable for closed loop recycling to other beverage containers. There's going to be a lot of cost savings for local governments and taxpayers because this program is entirely funded by beverage companies. In fact, they refund, excuse me, Maryland Department of the Environment has oversight, but it's actually implemented and financed by a beverage container stewardship organization. All manufacturers importing these beverages into Maryland have to join, and they have to pay for the whole shebang. They also get the materials that they collect to sell in the market, and that goes back into the program. All deposits that aren't returned because people don't care about them, perhaps in some cases, all those unredeemed deposits will also go back into the program. They don't go back to the beverage producers. So over on the right, I just wanted to show you how high the collection rates in the European deposit return systems are. This is what we hope to achieve. We have a relatively high deposit like most of these other countries, and we expect to get at least 90% back. This is going to be the only program I'm aware of where the target is enforceable. The Beverage Container Stewardship Organization has to get to 90%, or they pay the prevailing deposit level as a penalty for every single container short of the 90% target. So we're very confident we'll get 90% back, which would be very good for probably higher than the other U.S. states. let's just say that we had incredible momentum in 2025. We were so happy. First, the statewide poll found that 90% of the registered voters in Maryland support a bottle bill with a 10-cent deposit that's refundable and paid for by the beverage companies and not taxpayers. We got support from the Maryland Municipal League. The municipalities understand now that they stand to save a lot of money by this because a certain share of all their waste stream and recycling stream and the collection of litter is going to be taken over by the beverage or prevented by the beverage companies that finance it. We had an important amendment this year, the cost of processing redeemable containers that people nevertheless put in their curbside bin and they don't get the money back. Those would go into the materials recycling facility. They will be reimbursed. The recycling facility will be reimbursed for the processing of those containers that were redeemable. So that was a major amendment that the Environment and Transportation Committee added. It was passed by the Environment and Transportation Committee. It stopped short of getting to the floor because there was no vote in Economic Matters. And the other good news is that the Extended Producer Responsibility for Packaging bill that passed last year, SB 901, had new language in it that stated that passage of that bill would not preclude the passage of a separate beverage container deposit system, and that both are passed. They will work, collaboratively to get the best outcome. So that, in a nutshell, is the story. We're really looking forward. We're making great progress, and we hope to make great progress this year. It will be challenging because it's an election year, but we really have a lot of momentum now and a lot of public support.
Yeah, thank you, Martha, and thanks for representing this bill for so many years and being a great advocate for it. We do have a couple questions before we move it. And Senator Brooks, thanks for joining us.
Oh, sure.
We covered your septic bill and the bottle bill now. We're going to wrap up here, and then I'm going to actually turn it back over to you to cover your other bills, if you don't mind. Um, and so, Martha, while I have you, or Senator Brooks, if you want to answer, a question I have about the bottle bill is, of the 10 states in the US who have a similar bill, how many of them started their recycling with that versus had to transition from a current recycling program to this other program? And I'm wondering about the behavior change and the infrastructure change that's needed for such a transition.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Those programs in the other 10 states were launched, well, as early as the early 1970s. That was before we had curbside recycling. And curbside recycling has come along and it's done a lot, but you can't recycle what you can't collect. So, and about the best that they can do is get 40% of the beverage containers or so because people consume beverages away from home. Now, even the European countries have found that they can't really get to 90% redemption of the PET bottles without a deposit that's refundable. So the best practice is to have both. You can get much higher return of beverage containers. And this deals with plastic pollution. We're going to prevent a lot of plastic going into the Chesapeake Bay and breaking down to microplastics from this bill. And I think that has really changed the discussion around the bottle bills. People are determined to at least cut off that source of plastic pollution.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's really important, like PFAS and microplastics. Those are two really big issues that need, every sort of effort to really attack and address. I have one more question on the bottle bill here. What keeps the retailer from simply putting the bottle after it is returned into the landfill or trash?
So basically what they have now, this is not your grandparents' bottle bill. It's collected, usually through some type of technology at a retailer, but the retailer themselves isn't necessarily handling it. So it would go into a reverse vending machine. These are the machines where you can feed them in one at a time. They verify they had a deposit, and then you get a script that you can cash in at the retailer at the checkout to get your money back. Or, a couple of pictures ago, there was a picture of the Clink bag drop. So in that case, you put all your containers in a bag, you have an account, you have your own barcode, you put it in that little trailer, and in 2 days, all your refunds are put in your account. They can figure out exactly how many refunds everybody deserves based on what they put in their bag. So it's the retailer doesn't really handle your return in the system, but the most convenient, the reason, one of the reasons these European systems have such a high return rate is because they're almost all completely returned to retail. Some of the US ones that started earlier, there's a lower retailer participation rate, so it's not as easy to return them. So they don't get quite as high as this.
Yeah. Well, great.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt, if I can add on to that too. Now, there's a value to these that's been added on to the material, you know. So now, if the retailer were to just go ahead and toss it, he's throwing away money.
Right.
And I don't think too many retailers want to do that. So yeah, the mere fact that there's a value on that now is something that's like a commodity. It can be redeemed and then money's collected for that. So that makes it a little bit more attractive for people to want to redeem them and then collect whatever funds that has been
Yeah.
deposited on them. Yeah. So.
Sounds like a great incentive structure there. So I want to get to your other bill, Senator. And so, Martha, there are actually a few more questions in the Q&A about the bottle bill. If you don't mind heading over there and answering those. And then, Senator Brooks, I want to take us back a little bit here. And I want to hear about the property tax credit, retail service stations conversions. How about
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, th this bill primarily what it does, it allows individuals to get a property tax credit if they were to convert those locations into a different retail type service or some type of residential use. The bill would authorize the state to pay the local jurisdiction 50% of whatever ongoing taxes that would have been collected on that property, and it aims to help offset the cost of removing underground fuel storages and to make that idle property producing, you know. So that's the primary goal there. And then in Baltimore County, as well as Baltimore City, there are numerous service stations that close down, and then the property just becomes idle. So we're trying to remove trying to make those particular properties put them back into service in one way or another, not necessarily gas stations, but at the same time, retail property and income producing. And that's the intent behind the bill.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, I can really understand and see the value in this promoting infill, right? Especially in rural areas where we're seeing development pressures outside, you know, looking at these vacant retail service areas and converting them into actually developable properties is a great
Right.
thing. And the
Right.
yeah, and the incentives that are offered here for the gas tanks and other things to remove are often a huge barrier to getting that there. So I think it's well thought out, and thanks for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to move now to your next one. Don't mind me as I jump over to
Right.
this is going to be the GITS bill, which I'll just warn you, this has been brought up a lot. A lot of people are excited about this.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead and why don't you dig into this for us?
Right, yeah, this is what we call the grid enhancement technology bill. And primarily what we want the utility companies to do is to see what other utilization that can be done via software, via reconductoring, you know, to make sure that we can utilize all of those particular options prior to installing more 500 kilovolts power lines, you know, coming down from wherever. Like right now, we had some big concerns about the MPRP, Maryland, you know, bringing those 500 kilovolt towers from Pennsylvania all the way down to Frederick County, you know. and that's going to be at the expense of the taxpayers. So there are things that we can do to perhaps get the same amount of power without installing those particular infrastructure enhancement, those particular infrastructure costs, and still be able to generate the same transmit the same amount of electron. That's a good thing. We've got what they call a dynamic line rating, and what that does, that measures the ambient condition of and temperature of a line and in real time capacity. And that sometimes they can increase the capacity of lines up to 50%, on cold or windy days. Then you've got advanced power flow controls. What that does, that's hardware and software that can reroute power flows to optimize that line utilization to avoid overflows on some lines, and at the same time the underutilization of other lines. Then you've got topology optimization. That's software that is used to track the best routes and the combination of lines when transferring power. And this software then can proactively alter or adjust where the better flow of those particular electrons. And then last but not least, that advanced reconductoring. And that's where you replacing those conductors with advanced conductors, and you just replacing the lines, and sometimes you can get twice the capacity as what you were getting before. So we just want the companies to utilize all of these particular options prior to just running installing more high voltage towers, because those particular costs, the ratepayers are saddled with that for 40, 50, however many years, and they are not, those particular costs are not, they're amortized over the life of that loan, as opposed to normal business entities. They recover that cost through depreciation, but these are amortized. So it's like you're paying for a house for 60 years, 40 to 50 or 60 years. So the goal here is try to mitigate some of the increases on the ratepayers.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the push to look for alternatives before we settle on, what could be some of the mistakes we've done in the past. As you said, financially, the burdens that have been carried because of some of this technology, that if we were only to see and recognize the new technology and using that forward, we may have been able to minimize some of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Well, Senator Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. I'm always
Sure.
impressed with the breadth of legislation that you bring forward every year, and I'm excited to see how we can work together with the advocacy community on the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Matt. Good enough.
Great.